Hi, I'm Randy Altman with Post Perspective. We're here at NAB 2015 with Adobe's Bill Roberts.
Good morning.
And you guys have had a ton of news lately, so we have a lot to cover, so I want to just kind of dive in. One of the big things that you guys announced was that you can now do color within Premiere. So I'm assuming that's some speed grade technology in there, but there's also some Lightroom as well. Can you sort of explain all that?
Yeah, so really we're very pleased with this because this is the culmination of the vision we had when we acquired the Iridast technology. So color grading is still a skill and a craft that specialists will do. But when we look at the market today and the way the cameras are going, they're capturing so much more color and light. Everybody actually now has to be able to work with color and light. And we looked at the things which formed barriers. What stopped people going into speed grade and taking things further? A lot of that was down to things like they wanted to see things like curves that they were familiar with from Lightroom. They wanted the user interface to be much more intention focused. So people know what they want to do, but in traditional grading, you have to have so much background knowledge to get there.
Right.
It barred them from having success quickly. So the new Lumetri panel that we've included with Premiere is really simple. The metaphor we use is progressive disclosure. So you can start with something simple, just applying a look and seeing it applied in context. And you can capture those looks as well. We have tools for that. And then you can progress all the way through more and more tools, but they're all about intention. So an example of that would be if you ask somebody to make the sky in a particular frame of video more blue, if they're a colorist, they'll think, well, okay, I've got to create a mask that isolates just the blue, then I have to go and find the blue, whether is it a shadow, midtone, or highlight.
Right.
You know, it's much more complex. In our new tool, literally we have this glorious little color wheel. You just isolate the blue and pull it out, and the sky's more blue. So it's all about getting to success faster, but under the hood, what's happening is all those complex things that a colorist would do happen. So if you open it up in speed grade, you've got all the work that you've done in a higher fidelity environment.
But for an editor, they don't have to be a color scientist. They're just kind of playing around with the look and being more creative.
And that's what we're loving about the pre-release comments we're getting. People are doing more color. And you know, some of the comments that really drove the development of this is color is now a storytelling tool. So years ago, we used to work with proxy media and we were happy with the fact it didn't look like the real stuff. Everybody's now working with the real content and they want to see what it's going to look like. One of my favorite quotes came from, it was actually from a Hollywood director, but he said, color and light is something I want to adjust 1,000 times as I'm crafting my story, not something I hand over to somebody else when I'm finished. And I think that's kind of where the industry is right now. You may want to go through a separate pass to smooth things out and tweak it out, but as you're going through, if I want to, use light to draw attention to you or me, I may just want to put a vignette on you and brighten you up a notch. Just simple things like that that guide the eye and become part of the storytelling experience.
It seems, so it's out now, right? People.
Well, no, we're as always, what we try to do is reveal at NAB what's coming out in the subsequent releases. We're not announcing a ship date. My comment would be look to the past for a pattern that's kind of reflective of, I think, what will happen this time.
Okay. Is that with all the things that we're going to talk about today as well?
Exactly. There's a couple things that'll be in sort of a special state, things like our character animator, which we'll maybe talk about later.
Yeah.
That'll be a preview because we feel we've got something really compelling, but we want to collaborate with our customers over the course of the next year and round out the feature set because it is new, it's an entirely new space. We don't really have a framework by which to judge its readiness, so our customers will tell us when that's ready.
Okay, all right, well let's jump on to, do you want to do the morph?
Sure. So so we have Max, and at Max we quite often do some technology sneaks, and at Adobe we have kind of two levels of research. We have pure research, and then product applied research, and then the development cycle. So we've got some really amazing people that work in the pure research team. Florian is one of our researchers in that space, and she looked at the problem. If you look at television, there's more and more reality-based television on camera, documentary, news style things. And for years, we've dealt with the fact that humans are imperfect when they speak. There's lots of ums and ahs, as I'm sure I will put lots of ums and ahs in this interview. And often we ramble between points, but to tell the story, we want to cut out those pieces. So when you're assembling your documentary work, you end up with a series of jump cuts. Usually we cover it up with B-reel, but then what you're doing is you're taking the eye away from the person. See, things happen during the interview, which cause...
We're talking about reality TV.
Exactly. So what we could do Cut is once you've got your interview clips all strung together, it applies a new type of transition. So what it does is, instead of just trying to morph last frame to first frame, which we've seen in other products, you tend to get a very kind of sort of, head sort of twisting and bending.
Yeah.
This technology goes out, finds frames that would actually exist between that by doing analysis of what the face is, populates the transition with as many real frames, and then does a morph between those little frames in between. And the result, when properly applied, is an amazing seamless transition, and you'd swear the person is perfectly eloquent and spoke with perfect flow, and everything just ties together. And it is a tool that I will say, it's not magic.
Right.
Well, when used properly, it looks like magic, but you're going to have to get to know what it can do. And because we're dealing with people speaking, obviously lip flap is something you have to be aware of. So, but if you play with it for 10, 15 minutes, you'll know how to use it.
And that's all you need in terms of getting ready, just like for training, and because you said that it has, if it's used right. So 10, 15 minutes and you're
Think
done.
about it as a dissolve and start thinking about what duration do I need to get enough frames to get a decent morph. But on the other side, you don't want to go too far, because then you'll start morphing in lip flap from the previous clips. So it takes a little bit of learning, but when it works, it's just amazing. So.
Okay, well that's pretty cool. Let's there's something I wanted to ask you about before we get to Character Animator, which is the retiming tool that you've introduced.
So this is something, again, we're very privileged to work with our customers in very much a collaborative mode. And this fell out of something last year, just a conversation I had with one of our broadcast customers. And he sort of said, I'm doing all of this programming, I'm selling it overseas, but the commercial availabilities aren't as regulated overseas, so people always want one more commercial spot. Yeah. So I have to retime this, and I have no good scalable way to do that. You guys must have some stuff in that area. And I'm like, well, we've got some retiming algorithms. We had this other piece of technology which failed in what we originally designed it for with user testing, called Faster Forward, which analyzed content for complexity. And our original premise was that would adjust the fast forward speed. So if something was complex, it would actually slow down. If there was just a simple, lock off on the camera, it would go faster. Users hated that, but the data of that was a really interesting match. So if we take that complexity map, tie it in with retiming technology, so it retimes more aggressively when the video is simple, and in a much less aggressive form when there's complexity on the screen. You end up with a really nice retime. And
it's not perceptible to the eye?
Well, so not to my eye.
Okay.
And through the testing that we've done with our broadcast partners, we've passed all their tests. So that's very important to us. And we can there's limits. We sort of found plus or minus 10%.
Okay.
And there are limitations, particularly I'd say audio is a challenge if you have percussive beats. So if you have a steady 4/4 drum beat and you retime it aggressively, it sounds like the band has had a couple of shots of tequila. But for typical dramatic or news format content, it looks great. And you can also choose to avoid those areas if you don't want to retime those with the music. Okay. We do have some research up our sleeve down the road for that area as well, though.
Okay, because there's larger, maybe more expensive systems out there that do this, but this maybe does it in a...
Well, I think this is really analogous to the previous stuff was really about retiming a video stream. So the video stream would come in, a retimed video stream would come out. Where we're actually looking at the full composition of the whole. We understand the editorial structure, we understand everything about that composition. So we're applying a much more complex algorithm that looks at the whole piece.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like non-linear retiming, if you want to put it that way.
Okay.
So for us, it's turned out to be just an amazing path to go from a conversation to a product that's ready to be released in a year. It's very fun. So and I think it's going to be useful for non-broadcast people as well. So you start to think about the constraints around things like Instagram video. Let's say you pulled something together and 16 seconds is really how long it takes to do what you want to do, but you only have 15. So I think people will use it for that. Coming out of broadcast myself years ago, cutting promos, you got to be 30 seconds, you can't be 31.
Yeah.
So I think we also have the ability, instead of percentage, just to type in a time. So being able to say, give me 30 seconds, boom, and it'll do it. So I think there's going to be a lot of knock-on uses for this. It's going to be one of those sleeper features. People will start to play with it and hopefully love it.
Okay. All right. Let's quickly, if you don't mind, just touch on Character Animator for a bit.
Which is one of the most fun things I've been involved with. I love a piece of technology that when you show it to anybody, the first thing they do is smile and laugh. So it's a delightful thing when you can deliver something like that. So this is really Dave Simons, one of the founders of COSA, one of the guys who wrote the first lines of After Effects, who's been with Adobe for over 20 years.
Okay.
This has been, it's okay, our cameraman is just walking away and taking the camera, but we forgive him because we love Mr. Basalto. Anyway, so Dave's always had in his mind to break down the barriers of animation. So if we think about character animation, we always think about keyframes. And really, when we think about animation, it's all about the performance. So for years, people have been trying to translate performance into keyframes. And performance capture was really limited to the very high end of the market. So your A-list, Hollywood movies would do markerless or marked facial capture to capture the performance. But it was super expensive, and you still have to go through the whole translation process to see the output. So Dave really saw the nexus of what was possible with a webcam, and we started to watch what was happening with Kinect and all the different things were happening in that space. And what if we took that performance capture mentality into the idea of character animation? Then, what I think is really amazing is rigging was always one of the challenges. Now, though, you can just create a character in Photoshop or Illustrator, and if you adhere to the naming nomenclature, so you call an eye and an arm, when you open that file, nothing special, just open that file inside of Character Animator, and everything is rigged. So it just works. So all of a sudden, your 2D piece that you've created comes to life. So it's just this magic moment, and it's like, what? Wow. And what it's really exciting about is the performance capture. People just, they sit down, they start using it. What's fun is if I'm demonstrating it, people stop looking at the video feed of me and their eyes turn to the character. So they're engrossed by the character because it picks up the motions, the eye blinks, all of the non-verbal communication cues. So we're tracking visemes, phonemes, mashing it all up into a compelling environment. We also have behaviors. So if you just stand still, if you've used a vector graphic Illustrator file, you can add jiggle. We can add wind, so things interact with wind. We have one character we call Bunny Dude with big ears. And if you crank up the wind, his ears will start fluttering. If you really crank it up, they'll flap right over and they'll be flapping away. So you get so many things for free. We have behaviors like breathe. So your character automatically is doing the body movement. And we've also tied it into keyboard pieces as well. So you can just capture performance and capture all your facial animation, but you can also interact with body parts using the mouse, or you can set up different behaviors using the keyboard. So you can have the hands grab, you can have shoulder shrugs, eyes blink, whatever you want. So it's a really amazing, fun, groundbreaking piece of technology.
I'm assuming there's a demo on your website that people could go to.
Yeah, you can see on the website. If you're lucky enough to be here, we have the development team doing the demos. So you're going to see an amazing demo, and you'll be able to sit in front of the camera yourself and try it out.
Really?
Because it is one of those things that just makes you smile.
Before I let you go, I know that there's a technology preview that you guys are showing. Would you be able to?
I'll give it a shot and see if I can bring this up. So this is one of the things we wanted to do, as I mentioned before. I'm just going to maybe hold it up there. You might not see it all, but as I move it around, you're going to see some color balls. Really, what you're looking at there is actually a complex 3D histogram. And what it's doing is it's taking the camera feed, and Apple does a brilliant job of understanding that when I pointed at that, I want white. But when you're trying to create a look, you want to capture the mood. You want the way the light actually feels. So this actually creates a 3D histogram, and you can literally just grab the color and light. And as part of your creative profile, I can now apply that. I can create a look, and you can see what it's like before and after. And I can see it on various shots. I can even start on myself. I use your own footage as well. But what we're creating here is we're not capturing a look. We're not capturing pictures. We're capturing this 3D histogram here. And I can play with it, and I can choose which colors I want to contribute. But what you wouldn't know is when I select a color, I'm actually selecting the midpoint of a 3D color cube. So that I'm doing really hardcore color science here. It's actually, the algorithms are by Lars Borg, who's chairing the Rec 2020, Rec 709 SMPTE working group. So this is a really complex technology made really simple. But what the coolest thing is, once I save that, as soon as I sit down at Premiere or After Effects, the look I've saved is immediately there as part of my creative profile. And our plans are to take it further across to things like Photoshop in the future as well. So this is something where I can capture the mood. So imagine being on a beach at sunset, it's just glorious orange light. So that's the kind of thing you want to use to maybe warm up an interview like this. So you can build up a portfolio of your own personalized looks that work perfectly with our new Lumetri color workflow inside of the Premiere experience.